The air was cold, thick with the smell of diesel and salt. Thousands of young men shivered, not just from the chill, but from what was to come. They stared at the dark, churning water, a wall of ships stretching further than the eye could see. Each wave sloshed against the hull, a ticking clock in the deep night. Some gripped dog tags. Others clutched letters from home, worn soft from reading and rereading. They whispered prayers. They looked at their friends, knowing that not all of them would see the sun rise. This wasn't just a trip across the English Channel. This was a jump into the unknown, a leap into history itself. I'm Dr. Vance, and this is the story of D-Day. Imagine yourself there, bobbing on that choppy sea. You've trained for months, maybe even years. You know the plan, but you also know that plans rarely survive the first shot. And the Germans were ready. Oh, were they ready? They had built what they called the Atlantic Wall. Can you picture a giant concrete shield stretching for miles along the French coast? That's what it was, a fearsome, man-made barrier of pure defense. Behind that wall were thousands of German soldiers. They had machine guns that could fire hundreds of bullets a minute. They had cannons big enough to smash ships, and they had bunkers deep in the earth made of thick concrete like little fortresses. They had mines buried everywhere, in the sand, in the water. Imagine stepping out of your boat and hitting something that could blow you sky high. That's what these men faced. It was a wall of steel, concrete, and sheer human will. The weather wasn't helping either. The sea was rough. The clouds hung low. It was the kind of day that makes you just want to stay inside, warm and safe. But for these men, there was no turning back. They had a job to do. The leaders knew it would be awful. General Eisenhower, the top commander, had to make the call. He looked at the maps. He looked at the weather reports. He knew thousands of lives hung in the balance. He had to pick the day. June 5th? Too stormy. June 6th? Maybe a small break in the clouds. It was a gamble, the biggest gamble of the war. But the enemy didn't know they were coming. Surprise was their only real advantage. So, late on June 5th, 1944, General Eisenhower made the hardest decision of his life. He looked at his team, looked at the forecast one last time, and said the words that changed everything. Okay, we'll go. If you want to discover more truths about military history, subscribe to our channel right now. Don't forget to like this video. It helps us a lot to produce more high-quality documentaries. And please, leave a comment below sharing your opinions or a story about veterans in your family. Thanks for watching. And just like that, the biggest invasion in history began. The first to go were the paratroopers, thousands of them jumping out of planes into the dark French night. Imagine falling from the sky, knowing you're landing behind enemy lines. It was chaos, pure, terrifying chaos. Some landed far from their drop zones. Some landed in trees. Some landed in flooded fields, drowning under the weight of their gear. They were scattered, isolated, and alone. But they didn't give up. These men, just young boys really, fought in the dark. They took small towns like St. Mary-Glise. They blew up bridges. They cut communication lines. They were the tip of the spear, paving the way for the men coming by sea. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, the roar started. Not just one roar, but thousands. The biggest naval force ever assembled began to pound the German defenses. Battleships fired shells the size of small cars. Imagine standing on the deck of a destroyer, watching those shells fly over your head. The sound was deafening. The sea shook, the land shook. It was like 1,000 thunderstorms hitting all at once. Then came the landing crafts, hundreds of them heading for the beaches. 5 beaches, each given a code name: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. Each one a battleground waiting to explode. Omaha Beach. Omaha. This was the worst. The Germans here were dug in deep. Their machine guns were placed perfectly, like watchful eyes overlooking every inch of sand. When the ramps dropped on the landing crafts, the soldiers stepped out into a nightmare. Bullets rained down like hail. The water turned red. It was a meat grinder. Can you imagine being one of those soldiers? The heavy pack on your back, the icy water up to your chest, the sound of bullets buzzing past your ears, friends falling all around you. Some men never even made it to the sand. Others crawled inch by painful inch, looking for any cover they could find. They were pinned down, unable to move, unable to fight back. We are just scratching the surface of this incredible history. If you are enjoying this documentary, take a brief moment right now to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Your support is what allows us to keep digging into these forgotten archives. But here's what most people don't know. The commanders on the ships, watching this horror unfold, almost called it off for Omaha. They thought it was a total failure. But the soldiers on the beach, the ones who were still alive, refused to give up. They found courage deep inside themselves. They found tiny gaps in the German fire. They started moving, small groups at a time. They used Bangalore torpedoes, long pipes filled with explosives to blow holes in the barbed wire. They climbed the cliffs, one hand over the other. It took hours, but slowly, incredibly slowly, they broke through. They fought their way off the beach. It was a miracle of pure grit and bravery. Meanwhile, on Utah Beach, things went a little better. The landings were less bloody. The paratroopers had done their job well, confusing the Germans and clearing paths. The British and Canadian forces landed on Gold, Juno, and Sword beaches. They faced fierce resistance too. The fighting was house to house, village to village. Every inch of ground was earned with sweat and blood. One incredible story is about the Rangers at Pointe du Hoc. These brave American soldiers had to climb a 100-foot cliff straight up while Germans fired down on them. Can you imagine that? They used grappling hooks and ropes. They were tired, scared, but they kept climbing. Their mission? To destroy huge German guns that could shell the invasion beaches. And they did it. They took out those guns. The fighting inland was just as brutal. The Norman countryside was covered in hedgerows. Imagine walls of dirt and bushes 10 feet high and thick as a house, separating every field. These hedgerows were perfect for defense. Every field was like a new fortress. The Germans could hide in them, and the Allied soldiers had to fight for every single one. It was slow, bloody work. The first day of D-Day was just the beginning. The battle for Normandy lasted for weeks, even months. Thousands upon thousands of men fought, bled, and died. But they pushed on. They pushed back the German army day after day. They opened a second front against Hitler's forces, a front that would eventually lead to the end of the war. D-Day wasn't just a battle. It was a turning point for the whole world. It was the moment when freedom pushed back against tyranny with everything it had. It was a moment when ordinary men did extraordinary things. When I think about D-Day, I don't just see maps and arrows. I see those young men on the landing crafts, shivering in the dark. I see their courage, their fear, their determination. These men, These heroes faced unimaginable odds. They made the ultimate sacrifice so that we could live in a free world. They fought for the values we hold dear. Their story is not just history. It's a lesson about bravery, about sacrifice, and about what people can achieve when they stand together against true evil. We owe them everything, and we must never, ever forget.
Thank you so much for traveling back in time with us today. If this story moved you, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell so you never miss our next historic journey. Before you go, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Your interaction keeps this history alive. Until next time, this is Dr. Vance, signing off.